Shalom and welcome to another episode in our ongoing series called Faith Journeys with God in the Land. Today we're actually on the Jordanian side at a city called Gadara, one of the Decapolis cities here in the Roman world. The view is quite good today from a place called Gadara. And as you see over my shoulder, there is the Sea of Galilee. We're actually on the south side of the Yarmouk River, which you now see below me, as we now, behind me is due north. But we're at this city called Gadara, and Gadara was one of these 10 Decapolis cities. So let's just walk here a little further and talk about Gadara. It's mentioned, not specifically by name, but the term Decapolis is. Jesus spent time here in the Galilee area, and it does say that specifically he taught in the area of the Decapolis. So there you can see right behind me the Sea of Galilee, and it's a great view. This perspective looking north and west as we see the south end of the lake. So we're at about 1,200 feet above sea level, and the Sea of Galilee is about 700 feet below sea level. But one story comes to mind, and that's from Mark chapter 5. And I know I did already a devotional at Hippos, which is just to the north on the southeast corner of the Sea of Galilee, and certainly that perhaps was the area where the Mark 5 story took place, but at least one of the Gospels identify him as a Gadarene, which means he was at least associated with this city of Gadara. And in that story, it's Jesus who crossed to the other side of the lake. That means he's crossing from west to east, and he's the only guy to get out of the boat, and he meets this demoniac who is just in a very horrible state. He's thrashing around, he's shouting, he's scratching himself with stones, and he sees Jesus. He actually identifies him as the mighty one, as a messianic figure, if you will. And Jesus, as he typically did before, he exorcised the demons from him, and the demons go into the boar or the pigs, and they go running down the slope that leads into the lake, and they are drowned. And the story of that ends in Mark 5 with this man wanting to recross to the west side with Jesus. But Jesus says, no, go and tell your family and friends, essentially, what I've done for you. So this transformed man who is now exorcised from demons, he goes from a hopeless state to a hopeful position and perspective of life. And he goes back and tells others what Christ did for him. It's a remarkable story. And again, one of the Gospels identify him as the Gadarene. And that indeed, if that's the case, he was associated with this city of Gadara, one of the Decapolis cities. I love the end of that story, by the way, as we walk back over towards this colonnaded street. That story is not only one of transformation, but I would like to think that this guy who was struggling to find purpose in life, he was demon-possessed, he was one who was now, could we call him the first evangelist mentioned in the gospel text. But this is a great site. It's a huge site. And perhaps we'll do another devotion from Jerash, which is just south of here. But you can see the colonnaded street. In fact, we'll end there as we talk about one last thing. And that's in regard to what Jesus expects of us. So when we drop down to this classic street, in the Roman world, there was something called the Cardo, which generally went north to south, and then the Decumanus, another name for a street that went east and west. But look at this street. It's colonnaded, very similar to Beit Shan. And you can see even how these stones are still in place. Really a spectacular sight with a great, great view of the lake, as we already saw. But as Jesus invites us now to be just like this guy who is transformed by who Jesus was, we are now to display the same grace and goodness to others. I heard one definition of evangelism being like this: the outflow of the inflow of the overflow of what Christ has done for us. We are to outflow from our lives, from our spiritual walk, the goodness and grace of God, all because of the inflow, the impact of what Christ has done for us. And that, of course, should spill over, the overflow, that we just have to share the good news with people, because just like this hopeless guy who identified with this city of Gadara, he was transformed, and God wants to use us in the same way as we advance the kingdom forward, as we display the overflow of love and grace and goodness that Christ has already demonstrated to us in accepting us in our sinful state. And now we are to go and tell others. So from Gadara, be encouraged with these words. And until next time, shalom.